Lionel, is that you?
There, I think I got it. Bruce?
Is that Lionel? Lionel, is that you?
It is me.
Wow. What's up, buddy?
Wow, it's been a whole week since we talked.
It's been like, it seems like so much longer in some ways.
It does. It seems
and
like
in some ways just like yesterday.
In some ways it seems like we talked just last night. But in actual fact, if you were listening to the podcast, it's been a whole
about
week.
4 weeks in the future.
Well, no, it's been a whole week since we heard each other.
There's true.
Let's get our. I have an announcement to make, so let's get.
We have an announcement. Do we need the trumpet, the fanfare, and everything?
No, let's get our guests in here now, and then we'll go right from there. So come on in here, Shane Wilson.
Hey, Lionel, how's it going?
It's going. It's
good to hear your voice, Bruce.
Thank you.
We're very excited to talk to you again. It's another episode of the ScaleTrains road trip. Or Shane Wilson drives a gigantic fifth wheeler around the country, and now it costs just a couple of bucks more to do it.
Man, don't remind me. I can't imagine what it's going to cost to go out to the Pacific Northwest and back.
And when do you start that?
We leave July 4th, and we'll be gone 10 weeks and come back on Labor Day.
Wow.
10 weeks, wow. And so why? So are you doing it like? Is there going to be like a band or something? Like, are you going to go in and be in a local parade in Benton, Tennessee, and on July 4th, and you're going to leave?
No, actually, our church does a big fireworks, and we're doing that on the 3rd of July. So on the 4th, we're going to hit the road so we can make as many stops as we can between here and the Pacific Northwest and back.
Okay, and where is your church in relation to Benton, Tennessee?
The church is just south of Benton. It's called Community Fellowship. If anybody's in the area and wants to see some awesome fireworks, we actually have our federal license and shoot some pretty big fireworks. It lasts about probably 30 to 40 minutes. It's all coordinated. It's quite a show.
Oh, okay. Well, that's cool. So I guess I'm assuming the church was there before you got there.
Had just started before I got there, just about a year.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool.
And if you haven't heard, Bruce, who is our operations manager, he actually is the pastor of the church.
Oh, is that how you met him?
No, actually, my daughter, when we moved to Tennessee, she was 16 at the time, and she had just got started in her faith. And one of the things she said when we moved, she's like, "Dad, I'm all for moving, but will you help me find a church?" And I wasn't very strong in my faith at that point, but we went to register for high school, and this gentleman that's registering, which happens to be Bruce, has a Fellowship of Christian Athletes shirt on, an FCA shirt. And I said, "Hey, I see your shirt. I'm going to assume you probably know a good church in the area." And he kind of chuckled and says, "Yeah, I might know one." And he tells us about that. We go that Sunday, and as they say, the rest is history.
Wasn't I going to interview him? I think I had talked one of the times I had talked to you. I think I sent you 2 headsets, and I was going to interview him.
Yeah, we could set up an interview with Bruce. He's actually getting ready to leave on a 2-week road trip himself. He and the family are going to go out west and see a bunch of national parks.
Oh yeah, cool. Well, this is a big day that you've arrived at the podcast.
It is a huge day.
Well, yeah, I know, but yeah, I got an announcement. It's not going to be all about you.
Oh, well, that's sad. That's okay. What do you got, Lionel?
Are you ready, Bruce?
I am seated. I'm buckled in, firmly gripping the armrests on my chair. So fire away with the great, exciting news.
This is it. I'm done. I'm not doing any more podcasts after this.
All right. Our email address, if you want to get in touch.
Oh no, we'll finish this one
for one more time.
Yeah, we'll finish this one, and then that's it. I'm done, because I was on the ScaleTrains Facebook page just looking for photos and stuff about the last road trip, and all of a sudden I stumbled onto this photo on May the 9th or May the 11th, and it's by a guys called Train Wizard Productions. And it's a recreation. It's an actual photo, and it's a recreation. There's a couple of people in it, and a period car, and a steam locomotive in the back. and it's called it's in the caption is as close to Time Machine as it gets. And anyways, it's called Train Wizard Productions. So I know, oh, that's cool. So I click on it, Train Wizard Productions, and I go to their Facebook page, and there's some fantastic photos. So then I click on the website, Train Wizard Productions, and I'm like, oh my God, what is this? And then, of course, out in my brain blurts, this is crazy. This hobby is like bizarre. It's so huge, and there's so many people to talk to. And I thought, man, we got to talk to this guy. And then I thought, you know what? It'd be easier if we just quit.
You free up some spare time.
Yeah, we'll have some spare time. I won't have to keep lists. I won't get all excited about, oh, I got to talk to this guy. Oh, I got to talk to this person. And if I just quit, everybody would be happier.
Well, at least you'd be happier.
So anyways, that's my announcement. After looking at Train Wizard, so I highly recommend that everybody go to trainwizardpro.com. And this is a picture I found on the ScaleTrains Facebook page.
It is a neat Facebook group.
It is. Your Facebook page is really cool. It's a lot of what you have your announcements, your corporate announcements and stuff, but you have a lot of cool photos from from customers that have sent in photos of your product on their layouts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, the one thing that we never want to be as a Facebook page is just about sell. We want to share with folks what's going on in the real railroading world as well as in modeling. And like this week, we're actually going to have a pretty cool, there's a gentleman in England who's got a huge YouTube following in the millions. And he did this great chronology on the turbines from Union Pacific. And we'll be sharing that out this week too, because there's always cool stuff out there to share and help folks learn. And
there's too much.
It's just not a, yeah.
Too much. There's too much cool stuff out there.
There is. It's amazing.
I mean, all right, let's get right to it. Let's get to the same old question I beat over and over and over again. Like, are you just as baffled by the size of this hobby as I am?
I don't know if I'd say baffled, but I'm sure amazed by it, and I'm thankful for it too, because it allows me to make a good living in doing it.
So when you started the company, if you had imagined, like, what's it been now, 5 years roughly?
Believe it or not, just had our 8th year.
Wow.
There you go.
Is like 8 years in, are you like, holy smokes, I didn't imagine this?
Oh, I couldn't have dreamed where we're at today. I remember writing the first business plan, and one of the things we thought was, do you think we could ever get to 10 employees? And I couldn't even come up with 10 at the time. And today we have 19, and we'll probably add several more this year. Wouldn't have believed that for a minute.
So that would lead back to my question. Like, isn't this just way bigger than you could have imagined, this hobby? Like, let me ask you, look at it from this, now that you've created this company, you and your buddies, you and your friends, you and your guys, your co-conspirators have created this company, and now that it's this, you've got to this point in 8 years, like, wouldn't you look back and go, yeah, I thought it was big, but I didn't imagine it was like this?
Oh, yeah, I would have never dreamed that we would grow like we've grown and be able to do the things that we're doing. And yeah, it's beyond my wildest dreams. We've been, as I tell people all the time, we're blessed beyond my imagination.
Yeah. And the hobby, to me, I know I say it over and over and over again. Do you know the problem with, Shane, if you ever have your own podcast and you have to edit it, like before you put you record them and you have fun talking to people, and then you record them, and then before you put them out, you listen to them for, if there's any bad technical things or whatever it is, and then it starts to annoy you, and then you realize the most annoying person on the podcast is yourself. That's a problem.
That is a problem.
So anyways, I know I say it over and over and over again, but holy mackerel, I don't think anybody has any idea how big this hobby is. So social media has somebody, you got a visitor.
Not me.
Oh, it's Bruce has a visitor. Bruce, are you there?
I am here, and
Bruce, Oh, now he's put himself on mute.
Well,
Anyway,
the lovely Jean is now departing the studio and using her inside voice instead of yelling into her cell phone.
yeah, you always see people in the grocery store. I know. I told Mabel that we needed more sugar, but she just didn't listen. You know, I'm thinking,
yeah, you don't need. It's not like the tin can where the louder you yell, the better the reception is at the other end. You know. Anyhow, I apologize for that.
Yeah. Well, we like to have people wander through the studio. It gives it ambiance.
Well, that's one word for it.
Yeah. All right. So it's time for another ScaleTrains road trip update. So the last time we talked, you had done, I think, the Southwest. Is that not correct?
I believe so. I don't think we got together after we went to Florida.
No, we have not been together yet. I keep sending you text messages that you never answer. So then when you send me emails, I don't answer those.
It's a perfect combination.
It's a perfect combination. Yeah, exactly. So, yeah. Go ahead.
Do you ever get a text message, though, and you go, I really need to answer that, but you're in the middle of something, and then a few days later, you're like, oh, no, I forgot all about that.
Yes. I constantly am scrolling. Oh, geez, I didn't answer that one.
Yeah.
I'm more of a texting guy than an email guy. Because email, you always feel like you got to say more stuff. Texting, you can just, put 2 thumbs up and answer the question, whatever that is.
And see, I like email. I like email because I can answer it any hour of the day or night. You don't want me texting you at midnight.
Oh, sure. I don't. I have it on silent. I'll see it. I'll see it. I want you to text me. You know what, Shane? I want you to text me 24/7.
Be careful when I'm on the road. You got to remember, we'll have another 3-hour time difference. So I could email you at midnight, or text you at midnight, which is 3 a.m.
Yeah,
he's still up at that time. Just don't do it at like at 10 or 11 Eastern time. Then you'll be in trouble because then he'll be sleeping.
Yeah, the water sprinkler guy's coming by at 9:30. Doesn't this guy ever sleep? Why is he getting? Doesn't he have to have breakfast?
9:30. What a heathen!
Yeah, exactly. All right, so we talked to you after the Southwest because you visited a ton of cool places and all through New Mexico and all out through there, and then after that, you did Florida, right? The Southeast.
Yeah, we did. We spent about a month in Florida this past winter, trying out some different things. We wanted to do a little experiments to see. There's a lot of big cities in Florida, and can you, even if they're a couple hours apart, can you attract crowds? And if you're in the same big city, does it make sense to do events back to back if you space them out? So we were using that to test a lot of ideas that we're actually working with on the summer road trip. And actually this summer, I think right now we have about 23 or 24 meet and greets scheduled for that 10-week period.
When you get to a place called Medford, Oregon, if a guy named Kelly comes up to you, just nod.
Kelly in Medford. We've got a date in Medford. So.
I know. Yeah, I've heard all about it. We have this guy. He's a regular on our podcast. He is. I think you, Bruce. Is this not a true statement? Would Kelly not be the Modeler's Life mascot?
He is kind of like the mascot. Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah, exactly. He's the modeler simply known as Kelly. You know what? I would be forever. I would be eternally grateful if you could write this down and somehow remember it. That when you do your presentation in Medford, at the very start of it, is there anyone here known as the model as the modeler simply known as Kelly?
I could do that.
I would be like, that would be awesome. That would be.
And
so.
Then can you please leave now?
Yeah. Okay, so you only did Florida for a month? It seemed to me like you were down there more.
No, we were there about 4 weeks and got to do a lot of fun stuff too while we were there. But yeah, it was right at about 4 weeks.
Yeah, because you did Jacksonville, you did Orlando. Did you do something over in Tampa?
Did a couple of dates in the Tampa Bay area. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
because I saw you at Cocoa Beach.
That's right.
And was that part of it? Is that you were in the middle of it at that point? No, you just drove to Cocoa Beach for that meet.
Yeah, we just drove to Cocoa because we had the Railroad Hobby Show at the end of January that we were going to drive to, and so we did Cocoa, came home, went up to New England, actually drove to that show. Never doing that again. That's a long way.
It is a long way.
And then we did right after we got back is when we hit the road actually on Valentine's Day. My wife just loved traveling that day, and and then spent about the next 4 weeks on the road. Came home in the middle of March.
Okay. So how long does it take to get from Texas to the Panhandle of Florida?
You mean from Tennessee?
Tennessee.
Yeah,
No, they both start with TE.
Yeah, they both start with TE.
Yeah.
Exactly.
it's not too bad. From where we're at to, we just have to go through Georgia, so probably about 5-6 hours to get to the top of Florida.
And you went to the Daytona 500?
Did get to go to the Daytona 500. Got to check that off my bucket list. It was absolutely awesome. Had fantastic seats. And then the next weekend, we went to the IndyCar race in St. Pete.
Oh, did you? Oh, cool.
Yeah. And what was really cool about that, Alice at H&R Trains, I don't know if you know Alice, she was my account back in my Horizon days when I was in sales, 20 plus years ago. And she came to the meet and greet there in Tampa, and we met and kind of rekindled that relationship. And she invited us to her condo, which is 20 floors up overlooking the entire racetrack. And she invited us to the race. It was unbelievable.
That'd be a great place to see it.
Oh, it was fantastic. You could see the whole racetrack and you were in comfort, but it was hot down there that weekend, and it was really comfortable. And Alice was very gracious and had a nice spread of food and had some good fellowship and spent the afternoon. So yeah, it was a lot of fun.
So not only are you out there with your ScaleTrains, you're also having fun.
Yeah, you can't work every day of the week. You got to take some time off, and we're you also have to stay caught up with what's at the office. So like this summer, when we go west, we'll spend a couple of days in Yellowstone, taking a couple of days off, and then we'll spend a couple of days up in the Cascades, and then we'll be for almost a week in Portland while I travel actually back for the National Train Show. Michelle and Bear are going to stay out in the greater Portland area, and then I'll fly back out there and we'll finish up the road trip.
So how much planning planning is involved in trying to figure out where you're going to park your truck at your fifth wheel at each stop? That must take a fair amount of work.
It's getting better. Actually, a lot of the work goes in the front end, just finding the clubs. We get invitations, of course, but then you don't want to have where you're really long distances between stops. You try to find some places in between. That takes the longest part. That takes countless hours trying to lay out the schedule, figure where you're going, making contact with the clubs, getting confirmation. But one of the things I've learned is, ask the experts, right? They're the club is in that area. Maybe they know of a good campground or a RV park or something. So nowadays we're asking for, hey, do you have a suggestion on where we should stay? And that's making life easier, a lot easier.
Okay, that's a good idea. Yeah, because I'm sure most of the suggestions have worked out to be right on the money.
Helps a lot.
I have a question for
Sure.
those who aren't totally familiar with your road trip. When you hook up with a club for your meet and greet, what exactly are you doing?
Mm-hmm. What's a meet and greet? So what we do is we'll go to a club, and we set up a display, usually about 3 tables, and we'll show all of our latest products, and we encourage people to pick the product up, take a closer look, ask questions. We do some giveaways. We'll give some hats and shirts and some other odds and end items, and everybody who comes gets a gift bag. Lionel graciously supplies a Modeler's Life buttons that go in every bag, and there's other things from our partners as well as ourselves. And then we do a presentation, and we really strive. We don't want it to be an infomercial. This isn't buy ScaleTrains. That's not the purpose at all. It's more about sharing our story, how we got started, which is, and Lionel, I've talked about this before, it's a miracle that we've made it this far. And we share that story, and we talk about how model trains are made, actually go through that entire process, give folks a behind the scenes look, even take some video from the factory that we show. And then we do a Q&A session. So, the presentation is probably about 30 to 40 minutes. Q&A depends on the audience, can be up to usually 20 minutes, half hour. And then we spend some time after that hanging out. A lot of folks come up afterwards and have questions and want to see the models. And we'll usually run trains on the club layout. If the club doesn't have ScaleTrains, there's some clubs that don't have much of our models. So we bring along some things for the club to run and usually try to have some of the latest. Like this summer, even though we haven't shipped the Jeep 30s yet, we'll have the Jeep 30s with us and some other surprises too.
So you run into clubs where they just really don't know the product that well, eh? Which Which is it still? I guess it's still is surprising. It is surprising. I'm telling you this. I'm telling you, man, this hobby is huge.
Yeah, it does surprise me. Some clubs you go in and it's like, holy cow, this is like a walking billboard for us. The amount of product that's on the railroad and, all the power and equipment. And then sometimes you go into a place and there's nothing of our product. And they may have never even seen our product run. So, we'll put something on the layout that's got ditch lights or class lights and beacons and all the lighting features so they can really see what all the cool stuff that we do to really bring more realism to the hobby.
So is it kind of like being a band where you go to some venues and you kind of go, wow, this is cool. Like they got it all set up and they're ready for us and this is great. And other venues you go to, like, is our career on the downswing because there's really not even a stage and we got to, like, is it like, are you kind of like, you go into each one and you're kind of going, I wonder what this is going to be like. Like I don't obviously don't expect details because I know you're somebody that I don't know what's the right way of saying this, Bruce. You don't want to embarrass anybody or anything like that.
Actually, my take on it's a little bit different.
Okay.
So, we come to some places and there's ScaleTrains everywhere, and that's awesome. You got these fantastic supporters and they're great brand ambassadors for us. And then you go into some place who has little or no equipment. Man, that what I see is opportunity.
Right.
And more than I can't tell you how many times when we've gone into a club that's like that, where by the time you walk out, after you've told the story and they really see the challenges that you've been through and how much you love the hobby and support the hobby and want to see it grow and how much you care about the customer and the people that are involved, you walk out with brand ambassadors. So, man, I just see it as a way to continue to grow the business. And what I love about it, it means that we haven't hit the ceiling yet. That means there's still more growth for us and we've grown tremendously. So there's still opportunity there. I
think the ceiling is unattainable almost. I'm beginning to think because
I hope so.
Well, no, but go ahead, Bruce.
Okay, no, I was going to say, do you see any difference between older, more established clubs that may have a whole pile of equipment that they're running and more or less maxed out as to what they want versus newer clubs who don't have your stuff as far who may or may not be running your equipment?
I think you're on the right path, but I think it's just slightly different. It's clubs that have an active younger audience seem to, when I say younger, I mean, the under 50 crowd, right?
Yeah, right. Yes.
Are really in tune with what we're doing. Not to say that some of the older modelers are not, but definitely the modelers who really want lighting functions and sound functions and animations and that kind of stuff are really have really embraced our brand. And I think we don't have a lot yet, especially for the steam era modeler. We will soon. We're finally about ready to get the MTH product off the ground in HO. And I think that will help to reach a segment of modelers, especially the transition era modelers. We just haven't had the product yet, but we'll get there.
The hobby's dying, eh? When you said the under 50 crowd, I'm thinking, yeah, I think that's, would you guess, I think that's a bigger segment of the population of the hobby now than ever before.
It's definitely a big segment and tends to be the segment that spends money because what you'll find, kind of what Bruce was alluding to, a lot of times your older modelers have bought the equipment that they're going to buy, and they'll buy some stuff here and there, but they're not in that, buying 6 road numbers of a locomotive when it comes out. So folks who are still growing in the hobby, man, they're buying lots of equipment.
Yeah, and without any. Like you haven't noticed that slowing down at all. Like
no,
a bugaboo of mine is people complaining about the cost of locomotives, and I'm thinking I always go to, try buying a new driver for golf, like a $300 for a locomotive compared to $600 for a new driver. It's like, forget it. Like the hobby,
and the one is definitely going to improve your quality of life versus you want to pitch it into the woods.
Well, not only that, you buy a $600 driver, then you got to go pay $100 to play golf with it.
Yeah.
So before you've even tried the thing, it's cost you $700.
Yeah, and unfortunately, a lot of the complaining, I would say 95 to 99 100% of all that complaining is from the old guys. Wow, geez, I got the Athearn one back in 1963. It was only $29.95. How come they're so expensive now? That's why everything else has gone up, and then compare the quality and the features you're getting today versus your 1963 Athearn Blue Box unit.
Well, that's why during the meet and greet, we share how model trains are made, because I don't think most people in our hobby really know how much effort goes into creating railroad, road number, and era specific models. It's tremendous, the amount of work that goes into it. I just literally, the call I was on right before this, I was on with our director of product development, and we were talking. We're having a challenge right now. We're coming out with an ET44 Tier 4 in the CN Heritage Series, and the EJ&E Orange has just been a nightmare to match that color. Every photograph that you look at is a different shade. We've gone to the point where we bought this technology where it's a color picker, and you can actually take it over an image. Well, heck, you can take it over that EJ&E image, and it'll probably come out with 24 different shades of orange. We've gone to the experts who have that, and they've given us this color number that it's supposed to be. And when you look at that color, it's like, no, that's not it. And there's just so much that goes on behind the scenes that I think it really helps people to see that. And that really is why product costs what. We're actually talking about trying to figure out where this locomotive is going to be, and actually flying Mike out so he can, don't record this part, so he can secretly, hopefully, scrape some orange off the locomotive and we can color match it. I mean, that's how crazy it is. And we're trying to be so accurate, and to think, that we're seriously talking about that, and with airfare and hotel and rental car and chasing the real thing down and trying to get access where you're not illegally on railroad property and all that. It's, but we want it to be right. And I think that's the thing that really helps and really shows people that, that's what goes into some of the cost of creating the model.
And
it's like the age old question: what's the color of boxcar red? Yeah,
mm-hmm.
There isn't. Whatever shop was painting had their own color, so there may be a standard, but it's not a standard type thing.
See, go ahead.
And I was going to say too, EJ&E, even when the railroad was still around, it had several different shades of orange, and you have to match it for each prototype that you're working on.
Well, see, I would find that incredibly demoralizing. That
it's frustrating.
Yeah. Well, because you guys had that thing with the Erie Lackawanna paint color.
Yeah.
And me personally, I could care less. It's gray. It's like if I had bought I could never imagine being that anal about the color. Now I get it. Like, I understand that people, are very excited about the hobby. They're very excited about reproducing a railroad. I got a really good question, I think, from this. And they're very excited, but I mean, holy moly, okay, the gray is 2 shades off or 3 shades off. Like, that would just drive me nuts. I'd last like a week and a half in the business, and I'd say, you know what? If you don't like the gray, why don't you go down to Home Depot and get yourself a can of Rust-Oleum and see how you make out.
or just start weathering your model, because that gray would have lasted for about a week out of the factory, and then it'll be totally different looking.
Well, exactly. Anyways, how do you deal with that constant barrage of people telling you that it's not? That's what would get to me. Constant barrage of people telling you you're doing it wrong.
It can be really demoralizing. There's more than once I've had to pull our team together and give them a pep talk. And the good news is, it's amazing. The power of the internet is good and bad. We talk about all the time about, I know in our conversations about how it's growing the hobby, but then in the same vein, one guy posts something on the internet and it can go like wildfire. We stubbed our toe on the first run of SDL 39s. But if you'd read the internet, you would think that we had 100% quality issue. And it came nowhere near. We were, if I had to guess, I'd say I'm much higher. We're normally under 1%. This was probably closer to 20. And we certainly didn't want to be there, but in the product that we tested before we shipped, it was fine. We got in the 80% part of it. And so we stubbed our toe pretty good on that, but it's like, man, if you'd have read everything on the internet and believed it, you'd have thought the house was burning down.
Oh, there's some comments I read. I think the guy, oh, it's terrible, blah blah blah. And yeah, well, that's it. I'm going to cancel my order of 4, and this is a piece of crap. I don't want it. You're like, no, it's the saying is, the good thing about the internet is anybody can post a review. The bad thing about the internet, anybody can post a review. So, you got these keyboard warriors out there who they wouldn't be happy if you gave them the perfect locomotive and $100 with it, because you didn't give them $200 to go with it. There's no pleasing some people, and unfortunately, there's enough out there who will just believe anything they read and go off on a tangent. Oh, the world's falling apart. This is crap. I'm going to cancel all my orders. I'll look for somebody else's. Then somebody says, well, here's the easy fix. It's no big deal, But it's the ones out there who have nothing better to do in life except to find fault with everything, and then everybody, their followers, believe everything, and that's the battle you're fighting.
It's a big battle too, because the cancellations came in hot and heavy, and it's frustrating because if anybody's bought our product and if you've ever had an issue with our product, that we stand behind it. And, it's certainly not what we want to have happen. We never want anything to go out with that kind of higher defective rate. You do everything you can to prevent it. And when you test the samples and everything you test looks fine, you test a percentage, and it happens, unfortunately. But when something does go wrong, we take care of it. And I think that's what helps us kind of stand above the crowd is we know that we're not perfect. We're never going to be perfect. We strive to, but God didn't make us that way. And when we fall short, we take care of it.
And I would be just like a. So, okay, so 2 out of every 10 of your SDL 39s. What was the problem? I forget.
There were a couple issues. One was, the main issue was in the simplest terms, the screw boss that held the couplers on and attached the shell to the underframe. Some in the molding processes, if you hit the edges of the tolerances, and even a little bit more than that, there was a small, just minute gap, millimeters at most, where that was between the screw boss and the coupler cover. So when you cinch that down, what would happen is it would pull the pilots down on the end. Sometimes on one end, sometimes on both ends, sometimes not at all. Right. And the fix is pretty easy, and it fixes most of them. Sometimes, though, when you screw that boss down, it overextends it so much that it can't be fixed. But for the second run, we've gone back and we've fixed the tooling in that area so that there's more material there. So now when you cinch down the boss or cinch down the screw, right, it won't pull that pilot down. But it was something that we had seen in a couple of pre-production samples, and the factory assured us that they would fix it for production. And when production came in, we hand sampled some product, and everything we hand sampled looked fine. And just so happened we didn't pick any that didn't. And so that one got out the barn door.
So how many, when they came in, I don't think this is a hard question to answer. So how many of these SDL 39s came in the first shipment where you would hand sample some? Like how many locomotives are we talking about in that shipment where you hand sampled some?
I don't recall the exact number, but we'd opened a few cases and pulled, from different.
So it's well over 1,000 anyways.
Oh, no, we wouldn't open that many.
No, but no. I mean, there well over 1,000 in the shipment, probably.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so we're talking, it's kind of like looking for a needle in a haystack almost.
Yeah. And what we found was there were certain item numbers that seemed to have the issue more than others, even road names. And I would assume that's probably when those parts were done in the molding process. There were some road numbers that were pretty much perfect. And then there were some road numbers that would have been higher than the 20%. So, and it's just that the sampling that we took, we didn't hit those. So,
well, sure, yeah. So then, what did you do? So, like the cancellations come in. So obviously, it's the same as the Erie Lackawanna thing. I remember my buddy David Start said he was like super. I remember saying that to you when I was interviewing you there at Springfield. He was super impressed with, the color, the color was off, and he had sent an email, and you guys just said, send them back. We'll send you new shells. And like, he was just like, there was absolutely no question as far as customer satisfaction, as far as he was concerned. So, I mean, was it the same basic process? Anybody that got a goofy one, if they didn't want it, you would replace it?
Well, what we did, I'll give you two things. First of all, as we speak, by the way, those Erie Lackawanna shells are on the way to us.
Okay, good.
What we did is we came up with a quick fix, and thank goodness for our friends at KD. They had some plastic washers, and they sold us tons of them. And what we did is we put together a quick video on how to fix the pilot issue, and you could fill out this form on our website or through our consumer newsletter or through Facebook, and request the washers. And it's super simple fix. And I mean, it's so simple, even I could do it. And you guys, if you know me, you know I'm not a great modeler. I love to take my trains out and just run them.
Right.
And if you weren't comfortable doing that, you could send it back to us. We'd actually send you a call tag, and you could send it to us, and we would make the fix for you and send it back to you freight paid. And so we had some folks take us up on that, and that's what we did.
Okay, so basically it was a pretty simple fix. It just, yeah, I mean, and you could probably go buy the washer, a suitable washer. I mean, something like that wouldn't really bother me that much. I'd think, oh, well, just, it's like anything you buy. I mean, heck, you try owning a Harley, there's half the pieces don't fit.
Well, and then we had another issue too, for folks who wanted to use another brand decoder in the locomotive. We should have had an extra dip switch on the main board to bypass some of the electronics in the supercapacitors, and we're having the main board redesigned for the second run. So if you wanted to put another brand's decoder besides the SU in the model, you could.
So, okay, let me ask you this question. In the 8 years you've been operating, have we gotten to a point now where it's like trying to stay ahead of all these, like the ESU, you need because if you want a different decoder, you got to do this and blah, blah. Like, does it seem like every time you guys design a locomotive or every 2 years, things are just getting more and more complicated?
Yeah, we bring that on ourselves, though, right? We're always trying to push the innovation in the tech. And so that's just the nature of the beast today. The customer today, they expect more lighting functions. They expect more sound functions, more animations. And to stay at that forefront, you got to deliver that type of product.
And I think personally that that's one of the things that's making the hobby more accessible to everybody. You can have with all the animation and things you can get on locomotives, you can have yourself a 2-foot by 10-foot switching layout and have these fantastic models and do all sorts of things with them. I think it's making the hobby seem more attainable to more people.
Yeah, it's much more engaging.
Yeah, more engaging. There you go. How about that, Bruce? The hobby is more engaging now.
Indeed. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, and here it is on our very last podcast, and you've managed to come up with a way of describing the hobby. Okay, so all right. Where were you sitting for the Daytona 500?
We were right at the exit of pit road on the second to the top row.
Nice.
Seats were phenomenal.
Second to the top row?
Yep.
Like as far up as you could get?
As far as up yeah. Let me tell you, it's a hike to get up there.
Oh, my mackerel. I go over to Daytona all the time. It's like I'm never going up there. Like I go for, during speed weeks, they have the ARCA and trucks and all that. You can go to any of those races and the thing is only 20% full. So, I always look back and I'm thinking, yeah, I'm never doing that. How did you end up way up there? Is it because you're cheap or you wanted to be as high as you could?
I wanted to be as high as we could to see the track. So for the 2020 Daytona 500, we had applied for tickets, but it was still limited due to COVID.
Right.
And they called the week before the race and said, "Hey, you're not gonna have tickets, but would you like tickets for next year?" And I guess it's been 21. Right. And I said, "Sure." And I said, "What would you recommend?" He's like, "Hey, I got seats 2 rows from the top, right on the aisle. You want them?" And I'm like, "Yeah, this is a bucket list thing, probably once in a lifetime. Let's do it." And so that's what we did. And we also went to the twin 125s on Thursday night. That was kind of boring, but the race itself was really good.
It is boring. You know what? It's boring for people that haven't been to Daytona, and I go a ton. For people who haven't been, it is boring, except it's exciting to watch the cars go around at speed. You got to be a race fan to start with. And I would highly recommend, even if you're only a moderate race fan, you got to go to Daytona once, because just to I mean, I've sat everywhere there. I've even had the opportunity to be in the pits. I've been everywhere, and there's nothing like watching, 40 cars go by at 190 miles an hour, nose to tail.
And I'll tell you too, what else is cool. We did the fan experience beforehand, and to get to the banks in the corner, the banks at Daytona are unbelievable. I've been to a lot of racetracks, and I've never seen anything like that before. Unbelievable.
Should I tell my motorcycle story again, Bruce?
Absolutely.
So years ago, before some numbskull ruined it for everybody, years ago during Daytona Bike Week, which is in March, you could, they had this deal where, I don't know, you donate, I don't know, it's like $50 or something. And you could ride your motorcycle on Daytona International Speedway. And yeah, and the first couple of years, it was great. They made it they were very strict. You can't go on the banking, but there was nobody, you could go as fast as you wanted to. They recommended you didn't go over 60 miles an hour, but it was kind of like wink, wink, right? And I mean, I literally, on the back straight of Daytona on my motorcycle, I've gone 100 miles an hour, which is very cool. But of course, so, you do that for a couple of years. But of course, eventually, some schmuck ruins it for everybody. So every year they would be like, don't go on the banking. Don't go on the banking. You won't be able to control your motorcycle. Don't go on the banking. It's like the third or fourth year into this thing, some numbskull goes on the banking. And of course, he loses control of his motorcycle, slides down the banking and wipes out two other motorcycles. And after that was the end of us riding our motorcycles on Daytona International Speedway.
Oh.
Because it's like it looks like when you're standing beside it, it goes straight up.
Oh, it's crazy.
Yeah, 45.
It's unbelievable.
I think it's 40.
30 degrees or 33 degrees, something like that.
Yeah, some crazy, man. It's straight up.
It's steep.
Yeah, it's hard to even just walk up. And now, okay, so what, I see you went to Largo, Florida. What was that like? What was that club like?
Let me look at my clubs, because I have to kind of refresh my memory. It's been a little while. Oh, that was Suncoast. That is a fantastic club. So I'd visited them back in my Athearn days. That's probably 10, 15 years ago. And when I was there, they were like, hey, glad you got to see the layout, because like we're tearing it down in the next couple of weeks. And they tore that railroad down and rebuilt a whole new double-decked railroad. And it's fantastic. Great club, very active. Man, it's one of those, if you're ever in that area, it's well worth the stop.
Okay. And good. It looks like you had a decent crowd for that one.
Yeah, that was actually one of the bigger events. They've got an upstairs meeting room, and it was standing room only.
And do they own their own building or something? Like they've been in the same spot for years?
I don't know if they own it, but they're in like a warehousing area. I would think they do. I mean, they've been there forever.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and do you remember anything of your Florida trip other than going to Daytona?
Yeah, actually, I mean, we did some pretty neat stuff. We one of the really cool layouts, one of the first ones we did was in Jacksonville, Florida. They're actually in a storage unit facility, and when they built the railroad, they were told they couldn't put anything on the walls, so you couldn't hang any bench work or anything from the walls.
Right.
And if you go to our website and you go back and you look up the photos, they built arches all along the edges, and the whole railroad is like suspended from these arches. And it really unique piece of engineering to be able to do that. And then we had some other cool things. We did. We went and visited a big S-scale railroad in just south of Jacksonville. That same day, we went to a really neat N-scale railroad that's on the water in St. Augustine, Florida. What a view from that model railroad! And
so
and then
were these private ones, the S-scale and the N-scale, or? Yeah,
they were private railroads. The S-scale. They call it the barn. This guy, he's built a barn, and he's got it's not little. Downstairs is probably it's a garage stall sized O-gauge layout. And then he's got some stuff along the walls, but then you go upstairs and this entire barn is an S-scale railroad, and it's unbelievable. He's probably got about every American flyer piece that's ever been made on that railroad. And then we went to the N-scale railroad, and then of course we ended up in Daytona and there were some great club layouts in Florida. And amazing. it's a very different perspective than we've seen at some of the other places that we've gone. It seems like the hobby retailers are much stronger in Florida than it has been in a lot of the other states that we visited. So,
wind that back. The hobby retailers are stronger in Florida.
It's an older. I'm generalizing, but
sure, okay, I get it. Yeah,
but it's an older clientele.
Yeah,
and you find that they're much more hobby dealer centric than a lot of places that we go to now, where folks just order on the internet because it saves time and money.
I didn't know there was a model railroad shop in Florida.
Yeah, there's a few. Yeah.
Can you think of any? Maybe I'll go visit them next time. Because there used to be some good ones, but
I'll send you a couple. I can't think of them off the top of my head. I'll have to go back and pull my notes. But
all right.
Yeah, there's a few.
All right. You didn't pull your notes for today, did you not? You did remember we were going to be talking, didn't you?
Well, I woke up just before noon, and
there
I was
you
like,
go.
I think I'm supposed to talk to Lionel today. I'm on the Lionel schedule today.
There you go. Yeah, because I got a message from Bailey saying, "Can we get this started at 8:30 in the morning?" I said, "Sure, you go ahead and get started." So, okay, that's an interest. I see here the picture from the Jacksonville guy. That's the one I was trying to. So I realize now you're out in the parking lot outside a storage unit.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it worked out great. Weather was perfect, and it worked out fine.
And so how big is their storage unit?
If I had to guess, it's probably about 12 to 15 feet wide. It's pretty deep. It's probably 30, 40 feet deep, maybe a little deeper.
Wow. Yeah, I'm looking at a picture of it now. And so they've hung it with arches off the wall because they're not allowed to attach it to the wall. Yeah.
Really clever piece of engineering.
Yeah.
And then they put an AC unit in, and they've got it. The arches are covered in plastic and insulated to help keep it cool in the summertime. And
so do you notice model railroading? So where you've been? You've been to. You did the central United States. Your first trip was somewhere in like Ohio or something, wasn't it?
First trip was back to my home club when I was a teenager. So we went back to Central Illinois.
Right. So you've done the central area, then you did Southwest, all through New Mexico and there, and now you've done the Southeast.
Just Florida. We've still got some more to do down here.
Okay. So you still got, so that's been the two main road trips. So what we're coming up to now is the third road trip, right?
Actually, the fourth. We did, the first one we went out and we did several dates in Illinois. The second one, we did some dates in Kentucky, Illinois, Iowa, and Indiana.
Okay.
And then we did the big trip out to California and back through the Southwest. And then this summer we've got the Pacific. We'll do the Upper Plains states to the Pacific Northwest. The one thing that we've learned, and I talked about the Florida trip being the learning trip, because now we're kind of getting things dialed in. The big thing we've learned is we need to really try to stop in every major metro area in the country, and that's a pretty tall order. But that's kind of the shift that we've gone through, because we see that there's so much benefit in each city that we go to. And even when I say every major metro, that's not to say that we're not going to be off the beaten path as well. If you look at some of the places that we're going to this summer, places like Bend, Oregon, or Jerome, Idaho, or those are nowhere near any major city, like a large metro. So, so I think the road trip will actually probably extend well into 23, might even go into 24. So our plan is this fall we'll go out for just a few weeks. After we get back, we'll be home like 3 weeks, and then we'll go back out for about 3, and we'll do some dates in Kentucky, Ohio, Western PA, West Virginia. And then next in the winter, we'll do Texas, New Orleans, Alabama, Louisiana, that kind of direction. And then next summer, we'll do another big West Coast run where we'll essentially go out the I-80 corridor and come back the I-70 corridor all the way to California and back. And then we'll have, I don't know if we'll do some fall dates next year. And then we may try to get up to New England is what we're talking about. And then we'll probably stretch into 24 and have some states that we still need to pick up.
Yeah, you got to do the Northeast. If you miss the Northeast, because I mean that's a well populated area with a ton of model railroading up there.
Yeah, and we've done some dates actually in the past, meet and greets in Jersey and New York, Eastern PA. So one thing we'll do is probably go back and visit some places that we've been to in the past. So we're going to come up with a little bit different presentation that we've done before to help keep it fresh.
So who's in charge of organizing the trip specifically? Do you have
That's me.
just you yourself and I?
Yeah. I do all of because, I'm picking kind of the path that we're going and then figuring out where to plug in all the stops. And then once we get that done, my wife does all of the campground bookings, RV bookings, and then the marketing team takes over and takes care of getting things like the press releases out to the media in the local areas, and takes care of getting, like, we do a flyer that the club can post or make copies of and hand out. And so marketing kind of takes over at that point. It's definitely a real team effort, because I never imagined how much would go into planning it. I'll bet just this trip this summer, and my dog's getting ready to bark. Here comes UPS.
That's cool.
There's
is UPS bringing a delivery from ScaleTrains?
Actually, I'm at home today.
I know, but so are they bringing a delivery from ScaleTrains? Like, are you getting the latest locomotive from ScaleTrains?
It could be. Ship it right across the street.
Yeah, exactly. Let me ask you, get back to, so you said going to each major cities is important. Like, can you expand a little bit on that? Is it because there's each major city, there's many more model railroaders or something, or like why?
The reason that for that is there are fewer and fewer brick and mortar hobby stores, and and we don't sell through a lot of retailers. A lot of our business is done direct at this point, about 2/3 of our business. And it's an opportunity to connect with modelers. And, our goal is to have at least 20 attendees per event. And the average event is usually between 25 and 40, some more, some less. And so you kind of want to hit that sweet spot on making sure you're reaching enough people. And you get, Tampa, you mentioned when we went to Largo, I think we broke probably about 60 people, 70 people at that event. It was really packed. And so it's just a chance to meet more modelers. But that's not to say we're certainly not giving up on visiting some of the smaller cities as we go across the country too, because I live in a really rural area, just because I live in Southeast Tennessee, and we're 30 minutes from the nearest town of any size. And an hour from Knoxville and Cleveland, or Knoxville and Chattanooga. There's just an opportunity in places like that to reach modelers too.
Yeah. But I mean, so basically the reason you're talking about you want to get to big cities is because it seems like seats and chairs seems to be like, I guess I'm thinking, okay, so you met 30 people, like that's not going to sustain the company, but you must feel like you're really making an impact by doing this.
Well, I come back to the words I used earlier, and that's brand ambassadors. It's not just the 30 people that come to that meet and greet. It's the people. So it's the other members of that club who maybe didn't make it that club's going to share with. It's the other modelers in the area. It's when that club hosts an open house and they're running equipment on their railroad, and a lot of times we find that they're running ScaleTrains equipment after we leave. It's a chance for them to share our story. Hey, these guys were here. We met them. They're great people. They they make great models. And if you ever have an issue, they'll take care of you.
Right.
It's building that. And it's throwing that rock in the pond and letting the ripples come out from it.
Right. Okay. You're having it makes that much of an impact. That's what
it does. 30 people may not sound like a lot, but when you're, Lionel, you've been to a lot of shows, like when we're at Springfield, and especially on like a Saturday, it's so crazy busy.
Yeah.
I hate to say it this way, but you're just processing people because you don't have time to have those conversations.
Right.
It's, you get 5-10 minutes and you're on to the next person and the next person and the next person, because you just don't. And when you get out to these intimate venues, you could really have those conversations. And the other thing too, we're making so many connections. We were talking earlier about colors. Well, I met a guy in, and I've known this guy for a long time, but he came to visit with us in Largo, and he's a passenger car. I was going to say nut, but that's not very nice. Aficionado, and he loves passenger. That's what I should say. He loves passenger cars, and he comes and he says, with the MTH tooling that you have, you can do this accurately, and you can do that accurately, and you can do this car and that car, and for this railroad and that railroad. He comes with this whole spreadsheet of information, and it's like, this is gold.
Yeah,
and we had no idea. And it's not to say we couldn't have found that information, but he saved us a ton of time. And I've had people hand us engineering drawings. We were at a club out west, and there's a car that we've wanted to do for a long time, and they're like, well, we have the drawings. It's like, you do?
Yeah.
and it's like, we've been hunting, and suddenly here it is. And you make contacts with people from the real railroad. We talked about that EJ&E. We met someone from the CN when we were in Chicago, and he's trying to help us kind of chase down this color, and as well as some other people, and the contacts are incredible.
Which
I have a stack. Yeah.
Which leads me to my statement of I'm convinced this hobby is way bigger than anybody realizes. That's what I'm trying to drag out of you. Like I'm thinking to myself, after 8 years, you got to be just dizzier than a trout in a blender trying to process everything that's happened.
Yeah. And I'll tell you what, and there's just so much more for the future. And some of the things that we're going to announce over the next month will absolutely blow you away.
Right. Will they be announced before the end of June?
Yeah. Yep.
Well, and then you can tell us right here.
I can't yet because we haven't signed all the contracts yet.
You don't trust me, do you?
I trust you. I just don't want to jinx the process.
Oh, wait a minute. Where were we at the last Springfield thing? I interviewed you before you had your unveil or whatever it was going to be, the Jeep 30. And I jokingly said, well, you can tell me because this won't be broadcast for at least for a few weeks. And you were going to say something. And I said, don't tell me because I won't get to the next booth without blurting out your secret. Because you were like well, I guess I could. I'm like, no, don't. I don't want to know. Don't tell me nothing. I'll come back. That was pretty cool. That guy that won the locomotive paint scheme contest.
Yeah, Jesse. Yep. That was actually turned out really cool, and it sold pretty well too.
Oh, did it?
It's a good looking paint scheme. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. How many of those would you make? Can you tell me roughly how many of those you would have made? Because I would think I'd be surprised at the number.
It's 200 or 300.
Wow. So
really,
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So what's the minimum of a paint scheme that you would do? That you would like? Would that be? Was that you are okay? We're gonna do this paint scheme regardless of how many we're gonna make because some people are gonna want it, or is there a minimum of a paint scheme that you would do? Like, what's the?
There's not like I would say a minimum per se per paint scheme. Usually, our minimum order quantity is 48 per road number, and usually do 6 road numbers or so. So I guess what's that? 300 pieces per paint scheme. At a minimum, and some railroads, I mean, that's the number you're going to hit, and some railroads are going to do a lot better than that. And the factory, I mean, if the numbers are really low, a lot of times they'll come back and they'll want to nudge up the unit costs. So we always try to hit those numbers.
Right. And finally, next time you got to make notes. Well, you got to make more notes. This is interesting stuff, Shane. Believe it or not, you're actually interesting.
Thanks. I appreciate that, Lionel. I won't need therapy this week.
No, not this week. We have a lot of fun every time we talk. I always look forward to interviewing you, either whether we're at a show or whether we're doing this. This is interesting stuff because it's an insight. I mean, to imagine a guy, like there's no way when you started the company you would have thought, okay, here's what I'm going to do about 6 years in. I'm going to buy a giant pickup truck. I'm going to buy a fifth wheeler, and I'm going to travel all over the country. Talking about the ScaleTrains. Like, there's no way you even had that idea in your head, is there?
not specifically, but I've had an idea like that in my head for a long time.
Sure. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But I mean, to be able to do it and to actually after the first trip, like you and your wife were driving down the highway. What was the moment? When was the moment when when the two of you kind of looked at each other and went, you know what? This has turned out to be not a bad idea after all.
It was probably the third trip when we were going out west. The first two, we learned so much. We had ourselves booked way too close between events, and trying to keep up with what was going on with the company was extremely hard. And the third trip, we kind of got that piece of it figured out. And, when you meet some of these folks that you meet and they tell their stories, and, like when we were in Louisville, Kentucky, and the guy's talking about how ScaleTrains helps him. He has, how should I say this? He's had some brain trauma in his past and has some challenges because of that, and how he enjoys his ScaleTrains and helps him get through the rough parts. And then, you meet some folks who, a young gentleman who's had autism, and he and his dad model, and that's how his dad's really helped him learn how to communicate with other people. And you meet people like that, and you hear these just amazing stories. And that's when it starts to go, holy cow, we're making a difference in people's lives. It's not just making model trains. And it's like, the more of these stories that we can hear and share with others and help inspire people, man, it just takes the road trip to a whole nother level.
Yeah, it takes your breath away almost.
Oh, it's amazing.
When is there a gap here? I don't see there's a... Okay, maybe. So you have... I'm looking at this summer tour here, and I mean, it's like every 2 days you guys are...
We're rocking. And even that doesn't really share the whole story. We also do what we call visits. And we've got several club visits where the timing doesn't work out, or the club doesn't have a facility to be able to hold a meet and greet, or nothing nearby. And there's several. There's at least a half a dozen that we'll stop and see and visit with for an hour or two and take photos and learn their story. So we'll be able to come back and share that too. So it's even more than what you're seeing on the schedule on the website.
Has any of the small towns do they have like a parade and they give you the key to the city and stuff like that?
I haven't done that, but I'll tell you one of the cool things is several clubs have had special cakes made for us.
Oh, nice.
That's been really neat. Or they'll do something. We've had one club did cupcakes, and man, I'll tell you what, it's no wonder that my shape is round, because there's been some good stuff to eat.
Well, that's interesting. Oh, yeah. Man, that's all. So finally, you guys, what about, are you guys, where do you think the direction of your manufacturing is going? Are you going to start doing more freight cars, or how? This is a question you can answer this question for me. I was talking to our buddy Chris Brimley the other day, from Exact Rail, and I know a couple other guys that are getting into freight car manufacturing. And how is it possible to find so many different? I'm telling you, your number one job should be out there while you're out there is trying to figure out what it is about this hobby that draws people to it, because the hobby itself is so. It means so much to so many people. Then the camaraderie. While there are the haters, these people that are on the internet, and oh my God, the paint color isn't exact, or there's the coupler pocket doesn't fit, the pilot bends or whatever. There's some, and they blow it all out of proportion. Like, that is the horrible part of the internet. The best. I heard. I think his name's Chris Smith, the guy. He said, the best part about the internet is that now you can make movies without having to deal with middle management. But the worst part is anybody can make movies without. It's the same thing. So, like, how do you figure out all these, which car to do next and which locomotive to do next? I mean, that would boggle my mind trying to figure that out constantly. Or does it seem like the world's like, you hit a new oil well in Texas or wherever in the Gulf Coast, is like, holy we'll never use up all this oil. Does it just seem like there's an endless supply of ideas and things to model and produce?
I would say yes. I mean, there's, when we first started and we went fishing a lot to kind of figure out what modelers wanted, that list is so big now that, we've got 3 years worth of projects on the books right now. And our plan is out 5 years. We could go probably 10 years if we wanted to with what we have and what we call the bullpen. It's just endless. And that's the good news as a manufacturer. There's plenty to do and plenty of, there's lots of opportunity.
Yeah, I've got a question. We know you run the 3 different grades, for lack of a better term, of your models. How does that been received by the model railroad community?
So Kit Classics, that's the takeoff on the old Athearn Blue Box. It does okay. I see it more as a marketing tool. There's certainly not a lot of profit dollars in it. It does all right. Operator is a brand that we struggle with and trying to figure out the long-term future for Operator. I tell you, most folks, when given the choice, they're going to step up to rivet counter. Even the new folks coming into the hobby, they want the realism. And then museum quality is a niche. It kind of takes rivet counter to the next level. Sales are strong considering, it's a very small slice of the pie, but rivet counter is really where our bread and butter is.
So do you think you would drop the Operator line and maybe go with, what do you call it, Kit Classics, and then?
I don't think we'll drop Operator. I think what you'll see is that line kind of morph, especially as we bring in some of the MTH diesel tooling into the fold. We thought we had a great idea where the models, they kind of look like, unfortunately, they look like Swiss cheese, but we didn't put on the grab irons or like the lift rings on an EMD or those kind of things. And you could buy a kit and you could do that as a separate add-on. There's people that enjoy doing that, but that segment is pretty small at this point. So what you'll see is we'll probably still do a one-size-fits-all body, but you'll probably get it with grab irons on it and maybe some minor pilot details, but it won't get into the really railroad specific, different cabs and dynamics and all that kind of stuff. Operator freight cars, I should say this though too, Operator freight cars sell really well. It seems like folks want their motive power, and maybe that's because that's what they take photos of, to have all the detail. But on the freight cars, it doesn't seem to be as critical.
Right, because freight cars are really just are just the extras in the play.
Yeah. Plus, they're going to take a bit more of a beating during an operating session if you're switching and stuff, and more chance for all those great details to end up somewhere along the trackside.
Yeah, that's true. Yep.
So, do you have in the company? When you're having your meetings, do you have like today's typical model railroader is? Do you have an idea of what today's typical model railroader is? Do you have a stereotype?
No, because it's pretty vast at this point. We see more and more younger, 20s, 30s getting into the hobby than we ever have. And there is no kind of one size fits all. And I think that's why you're seeing us expand more in our eras. That's one of the reasons that we acquired the MTH HO tooling, was to give us a leg up in the steam locomotive market and bring in some other products as well. And, we'll get the MTH track back online and some other things too. So, and I think that's one of the challenges as a manufacturer too, is there is such specific, modelers have specific railroads they do and specific eras. And so you have to have a pretty broad spectrum of product to offer.
Is there a particular era that seems to be more popular than others? It is more the stereotype era nowadays, or?
It's definitely not, at least for us, and maybe it's because the product we've offered, but transition era is definitely not. It seems like the 70s into the 80s are hot. It's probably because of folks that are our age. And then today, like right now, is hot.
Oh, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
So that's cool. So then you're always trying to build that kind of stuff. And final question, and then I'll let you. Have you had any fun at all, Shane?
Oh, I love what I do.
No, I mean talking to us. I mean.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Lionel's been the time of my life.
I got two questions actually. First, I'm going to go. I'll go with. Let's see which direction. Should it be an auto racing question or an industry question? Bruce, what do you think? These are my two questions I have left.
Knowing you, I'm going to go with the auto racing question.
Okay, you just went to the Indianapolis 500 for what consecutive year? How many years consecutively have you gone?
Well, I've gone to the Speedway since I was 5 years old, so that was 1974. And this would have been my 31st Indy 500 as a ticket holder.
Holy mackerel. So where were you sitting this time?
Oh, well, after many, many years, we're sitting in the paddock penthouse, which is the upper deck, right across from pit road. We are about halfway between the pagoda and the exit from Gasoline Alley. So the seats are phenomenal.
So you're sitting on the inside? The inside?
Outside. Okay. Outside at the top.
And what's it called?
It's called the Paddock Penthouse.
And is it hard to get tickets in there? You said finally, or you just finally broke that?
Yeah, so you have to be a ticket holder a minimum of 25 years to be even able to apply for that section.
Holy mackerel.
And so I'll tell you a good funny story, then I'll let you go. So last year that was the first time I got the tickets that were upgraded. And I'm telling you, since I was a little boy and I've looked across the racetrack when my dad used to take me as a kid, I was like, someday I want to sit up there and watch a race. Someday. And, it took me till I was over 50 years old to get there. But so last year we get these tickets and you have to climb all these stairs. And I'm certainly not as young and in shape as I used to be. And we get to the top of the stairs and I'm huffing and puffing. And I stand there and I'm kind of taking in the sights, right? What you could see. And I'm so excited. And then I look down at the people and I'm like, dear God, I am old. Everybody here had to have tickets for at least 25 years. Everybody's ancient.
Well, you are old.
But yeah. So it's these are we'll probably stay in this section. I mean, the seats are just unbelievable.
And how much do those cost? I mean, you got to tell me that's not hard to tell me, is it?
They're $230 a piece.
That's perfect. That's well worth it. That's well worth it.
Yeah,
that's well worth it. You didn't pay $230 to sit in the blue nosebleeds at Daytona, I can tell you.
Well, and the thing about Indy for me, it's my connection to my dad.
Yeah,
and,
absolutely. It's a very cool thing to have gone 31 years in a row. Like I've only been once, but I said to my son, we got to go again. I went the very first year after I was diagnosed with cancer. Because I remember thinking after I was diagnosed, I'm thinking, great, I'm never going to get to go to the Indy 500. And then when May rolled around, I wasn't as bad off as everybody thought I was going to be. And I said to my son, I said, we got to go to the Indy 500. And, so we sat and we did, right at the exit of pit lane. So you can see into 1 and 2 and down the front straight. And man, there's nothing like when those 33 cars come down to get the green flag. There is not. My one friend who had suggested where to sit, he said, if you want to sit just at the start of turn 1 so you can see the front straight and 1 and 2 and the exit of pit road. And he said, because if you only ever go to one Indy 500, you want to see the start of the race. He says, that's the hot. And there's nothing like it. And
nothing like it. There's a tear in my eye every year.
Yeah.
Every year. Because, you talk about 31 years in a row, but it's actually 40, what would this be? Would be my 48th year in a row to go to the track. When I was a kid, my dad told me he would take me to a race, but I had to go to practice, which he took me to every year. And then we went to Fast Friday, which we did for years. And then he passed when I was a teenager. And then my uncle picked it up and took me to qualifications, and I got to learn that. And then finally in high school, I bought my first race tickets. And so it is like the holy grail for me. I love going to Indianapolis.
It is the greatest spectacle in all of motor racing.
It absolutely is. And you talk about that start. Last year I took one of my buddies who actually worked at NASCAR for a while. And when they came down to take that green flag, and after they passed, he looked at me and he says, if IndyCar could ever figure out how to market this to NASCAR people, NASCAR would be done. He's like, the speed is unbelievable.
Yeah. Yeah, like I'm a stock car racing guy from the age of 5. My sister used to take me with her boyfriend to stock car racing's been in my blood since I was 5 years old. It's I live and breathe it, and there's nothing like being at I've been to Daytona. I don't know, probably dozens and dozens of times. Either the race, all different races and stuff. But man, there is nothing like. Indy is something all on its own. Even, like they have the IndyCar League and they have Indy street racing and all that. But the Indianapolis 500 is the greatest spectacle in all of motorsports.
Absolutely is.
Who'd you take this year?
My wife went this year.
Oh, okay. Who are you taking next year?
I don't know.
Can I? Do you have a draw, or do you have to put in a bid, or how does that work?
Well, I've always told my son, and I tell him to this day. I said, son, there's always a ticket for you if you want to go. Because my dad told me that when I was a kid, and unfortunately he passed. So he gets first dibs, and then I don't know. From there, we see how it works out.
Well, if you're ever looking for a short, fat Canadian to take with you,
I'll keep that in mind. You never know. You might get that phone call.
That'd be perfect. I'd be all about that, man. I'd even buy you lunch.
Well, you'll be standing in line a long time, because let me tell you, there's a concession stand there in the upper deck. You definitely don't want to hike back down to the bottom.
Yeah, exactly. So what's the last question? What's the dealio? How's things going with getting stuff made in China? What's happening? Because I hear stories how it's hard to get. ESU is having trouble getting their decoders made and everything. I mean, still it's a mishmash trying to get stuff out of China and across the ocean. So what's that story all about? How's that all going? Is there headway? Is things improving? Or
it's definitely getting better. Shipping costs have dropped dramatically, although I expect them to rise again with fuel costs. But where we were paying $25,000 a container last summer, we're down in the 15,000-ish range. Still got a long way to drop to where it was pre-pandemic, but it's definitely coming down. Container routes are getting more favorable. We're getting more routing through the Panama Canal now than we are through the Suez, which is great. It's a lot less transit time. Manufacturing wise, our factory is doing fine. Our first shipment from after Chinese New Year will actually be here within the next week. So, and then we have another container that just left about a week or two ago. So product is definitely flowing. ESU, you mentioned that there have been some challenges with electronics securing components, but they've been a great partner with us, and we're helping us work through that and keeping us informed and keeping product moving. So while there's a little hiccup in the road there, it's not going to be very long, and it's actually much better than it has been. So definitely not like it was. Last year was probably the toughest year. Even harder than 20, the first year of the pandemic, for supply chain and for getting product. But it seems to be getting better. Just the whole electronic situation, though, is I'm not talking about ESU. I'm just talking about electronic components in general is a mess. And I feel really sorry for ESU. I mean, they're buying components now like 18 months out, just to make sure that they have inventory. And the stories I hear, this isn't coming from ESU, this is coming from other places. If you want electronic components, you have to pay for them immediately and not get delivery for up to a year or more, because somebody else will just come in and say, yeah, I'll pay for it right now. And that's made it a real challenge.
Yeah. We were talking to Jim Scores from NCE, and he says, spends most of his day on the internet just buying a few parts here and a few parts there, and just to, be able to keep manufacturing his product.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It's just a constant search for parts and pieces now, because it's become interesting. And the other thing is, I think when you just said about the Panama Canal or the Suez Canal, when people are complaining about nobody would imagine when you're standing at Springfield and you're looking at a model or, a ScaleTrains latest release and all that. Like just to hear you say, okay, our routing now is we get more favorable routes through the Panama Canal. People don't realize the amount of logistics and everything that goes into receiving that locomotive that is now running on their layout is mind-boggling.
Yeah,
and by coming through the Panama Canal, we save about 3 weeks. and while that doesn't sound like much, when it's already on the water for 5, and then you add 3 more to come through the Suez, and now you're at 8, sometimes 10 weeks, that hurts your cash flow.
Yeah. Now, are you going to Panama Canal to avoid the problems on the West Coast ports?
We actually did Panama. We started doing Panama long before the West Coast problems because we were having problems. We used to do Port of Long Beach, Port of LA, and do land bridge. And we tried Memphis, we tried Nashville, Atlanta. I think it was either Huntsville or Birmingham. I can't remember. And boy, while you could get to the West Coast quickly by boat, getting it from the West Coast to here was just the stuff that nightmares are made of, because you'd have to get unloaded and then on a container train and then unloaded off the container train and then to a terminal and then on a truck. And it took forever. And up until the pandemic, we were 5 weeks like clockwork from the time it left the factory to the time it arrived at our door, give or take maybe 2 days, 3 days. So we decided at one point to just kind of bite the bullet, because they'd tell you, yeah, we can get to the West Coast and you'll have it in 4 weeks, maybe 5. And it's like, no, because you're not factoring in all the issues with backlogs on the rail. And so once we started going to Savannah, for me as the guy who projects cash flow, is like, oh, this is great, because now I've got a more reliable way to track the shipment.
That's fabulous. It's not fabulous. It's fabulous. It just amazes me. It amazes me that you just don't think of how much is involved. Like, do you have somebody that's just primarily looks after the logistics of getting the product from A to B?
Well, from the container side, that Bruce does most of that with our freight forwarder, and that's on the inbound containers. But then Lori in our warehouse, she takes care of pretty much all the outbound shipping.
Oh wow, it's fascinating.
Hey. You talk about fascinating things. I will say this: in my wildest dreams, I never imagined how much money it takes to run a successful model railroad company. It is unbelievable the amount of cash it takes.
Well,
that's what they say. How to make a little money in the model railroad industry? Start with a lot.
Now, see, that's a bugaboo. See, I don't have a problem saying this in front of Shane, because to me, I don't know if I've ever actually said this to you directly, Shane, but I've said it plenty of times on the podcast. I understand that you're not going to make the same kind of money you're going to make running General Motors, but I think the large manufacturers, and you've never said this to me, you've never ever even hinted this to me, but I think it's that old adage of how to make a small fortune in model railroading, start out with a large fortune. I don't necessarily believe that, because somebody's making money. Somebody out there in the model railroad industry is making money, or else there wouldn't be all these people with all these businesses. And the leading manufacturers, the bigger ones, I'm convinced that they're doing quite well, thank you very much, which is fine, because that's the whole principle behind businesses, to be successful.
Oh yeah, and please don't take what I'm saying that I'm complaining, because I'm not. It's just I was amazed it takes to run the company. But you are right. I mean, we've been blessed and blessed to live very comfortably, and at this point, in the first few years, I would have told you it took a large fortune to make a small fortune. But we've turned that proverbial financial corner at this point, and there's money in the bank, thank God, and that to help you weather the storms, and we're on a real great footing at this point, which is going to bring us, is bringing us some pretty amazing opportunities for the future.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's the exciting, and that's been the great thing I think I've tried to say all along, is you've always been willing to speak up and answer my questions, and I think we've had a great history. We've been doing this now 6 or 7 years, 7, 8 years. Yeah.
Right after we kicked off things in 2015.
Yeah, that's right. So
publicly, yep.
So and my last question: what's the deal with this Bailey character you got working there? Could she possibly have more personality?
She is a wonderful addition to the team and does an awesome job for us with our graphics. She's the one that takes all the graphics you see on our website or in our newsletter or on Facebook. Takes care of all that for us.
I wish she was more high energy. I interviewed her at Hi Bailey. By the way, I hope that she's listening to this. Hi Bailey. I interviewed her at Springfield, and I'm thinking, wow, if she ever needs a job on being a Bruce, if Bailey ever decides she wants to be a world famous co-host on A Modeler's Life, buddy, you're out.
Okay,
you're gone. So
it was a good run while it lasted.
Well, talk about high energy and great personality. Holy mackerel.
And I'll tell you what, we are blessed to have a fantastic team of people.
Yeah, it really is great. And speaking of stuff on the internet, you would like this. Go to the look on YouTube for the American Museum of Speed, or the Museum of American Speed. It's in Lincoln, Nebraska. And it's the spectacular YouTube channel with all kinds of great motorsports stuff that only has 690 subscribers.
Really?
Yeah. And they have interviews, like they got Indy's unsung hero, AJ Watson. They got, I stumbled on it because I saw a Jan Opperman video, and then I started looking, and they got Ed Escuderian and all kinds of great stuff. It's General Speed, but it's the American Museum of Speed, or the Museum of American Speed in Lincoln, Nebraska. They have 690 subscribers, and it's fantabulous. If you're into motorsports at all, you're going to be interested.
This is cool. They've got the Johnny Lightning special.
I know.
That's really cool.
Yeah. This goes back to our endless conversation of holy mackerel. There is so much stuff out there. Anyways, it's great that you were on the very last podcast of A Modeler's Life.
Well, I'm honored. But I'm sure I'll tune in, and suddenly you'll have this revelation that you got to do this again.
Well, yeah, exactly. It's just that there is so much. I could not believe this website, the Train Wizard Productions. And I'm thinking, now I got to talk to this guy. Like, holy mackerel, it just never stops. This hobby, I'm telling you, Shane, the next time you're on, I want you to be much more excited about this hobby. Is way bigger than anybody could possibly imagine.
It is, absolutely.
Model railroading, rail fanning, anything interest in trains is massive, and the internet was designed and built specifically for our hobby because it has brought us all together in ways that we never could have imagined before.
Very true.
Bruce, can you give out our email address?
Yes. Send us emails. We'd love to get your emails. Send us emails at modelerslife@gmail.com. That's modelers with one L like Shane Wilson, not two L's like vanilla.
Yeah.
Well played.
Which vanilla isn't. This is nothing like vanilla. This is the podcast is much more like pistachio.
I'd go with decadent chocolate or something.
Decadent chocolate, yeah. And we have a website, amodelerslife.com. If you go there and you didn't pick up the email address, all you got to do is click on a picture of the moderately agitated mailboy in a particularly agitated state. And boom, all you got to do is click on that picture, and all you got to do is fill in the subject line and your text, and we love getting emails. And if you go to a modeler's, Shane, have you ever wanted a T-shirt with a hot dog on it?
A T-shirt with a hot dog.
Yeah.
There you go.
Oh, his interest is piqued, so I'm thinking the answer is yeah, he does.
Shane, would you ever put ketchup on your hot dog?
I do.
Oh,
that a boy.
God. You should just stop doing that after the age of 8.
No, he's a free thinker and enjoys life.
Yeah,
so
free thinker. Yeah. What do you go when you went to the snack bar at Indy? What did you have?
Actually, we took our food with us this year because after last year in the lines, I decided that I didn't want to miss the race.
That's a good idea. What's the most spectacular thing you've ever seen in your 31 years in the 500s?
Oh, man. I'll tell you, one of the coolest things I ever got to do was back in the IROC racing days. We used to have pit garage passes, and sitting on the wall next to several of the legends of NASCAR and IndyCar and listening to them talk about just their stories. That was pretty. Oh, I got one. The big thing this year was 4-time winners.
Yes.
And because with Helio winning a year ago, and back in the days when we used to get pit and garage passes, we could only get one because that's all we could afford. And my wife was in the garage area at the end of qualifications one day, and it was the end of the day. Everybody gone home, and I'm walking along the fence, and on the outside looking in, and this gentleman's walking up to me, and I look at him, and I'm like, "Holy smokes, that's Al Unser Sr." And so I walk up to Big Al, and we talk for like 10 minutes just about racing and his career and Indy and all this cool stuff. And my wife comes back. I'm like, "Did you see anything cool?" And she's like, everybody's gone for the day. I'm like, "Well, you really missed it because I just spent the last 10 minutes with Big Al."
I know. That's a one time, long story. Doesn't matter why, but I spent the weekend with a NASCAR team when they were at Richmond, Virginia, at the Richmond Speedway. And it was very cool. A long story, but I will forget why. And anyways, so I got the run of the place because I'm with this team. It was the mellow yellow team that Michael Waltrip, Felix Sabatis owned. And I'm walking around the pits right now. Of course, I'm just like my jaw is open the entire time because I'm right in the NASCAR. I'm in it. I'm part of it. And I come around the corner and there's Richard Petty walking the other way. And I'm like, as I'm walking towards him, I'm like thinking, you got to say something. You got to say something. Don't say nothing. Just keep your head down. You got to say something. You got to say something. And finally, as he's getting closer, I said, big fan. I'm a big fan. Wow, thanks very much. He goes, and I says, and it was before the time of cell phones where you could take a picture. I said, man, it just could. Any chance I could shake your hand? He's like, sure, blah, blah. And then he asked me, like, why am I there? And I tell him the story. And he's like, next thing I know, 10, 15 minutes, I'm talking to Richard Petty. And I'm like, okay, I can go home now. Just, it's always cool when you meet your heroes.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Just like the time I met you.
Oh, my goodness. It's getting thick now.
Okay. Anyways, if you want a t-shirt with a hot dog on it, you go to Midwest Model Railroad and their URL is midwestmodelrr.com. And if you scroll across the navigation bar and click on AML, boom, you're in a wonderland of AML merchandise, hats, hoodies, t-shirts, mugs, anything you could possibly need with AML on it. And so then you can get your hot dog t-shirt. And you don't have any Modeler's Life t-shirts. Do you wear t-shirts? You don't look like a t-shirt guy to me.
I'm sorry to say I'm not a t-shirt guy. I'm a polo guy.
Yeah, why is that?
I'm a fat guy, and I don't look good in a t-shirt.
I'm a fat guy, and I don't look good in a t-shirt, and that never stopped me.
That never stopped me, yeah.
Oftentimes I look in the mirror in the morning going, you're a fat guy. You don't look very good in a t-shirt. Oh, well, guess I'll go out anyways.
I don't know. I've just never been a t-shirt guy.
Yeah. And the amazing part is you're only 4'8".
Ouch.
Oh. Ooh.
How tall are you? 5'6"?
Yeah.
All right, cool. Man, I pulled that one out of the air. I got it. That's because I'm thinking, well, he's 2 inches shorter than me. Let's see. Well, oh, yeah. And finally, I know you listen to all the podcasts and some of them twice. I'm sure that's what you and your wife are listening to. Have you ever listened to the podcast that you're on?
I've listened to bits and pieces, but I don't like to hear myself talk.
Yeah, neither do I.
Well, you sound so different to yourself when you're actually listening back.
Well, it's like I said, there's nothing worse than the first time it ever happened to me, I was coming back from the RPM meet in Chicago, I think, and I was listening to some of the interviews I had done, and I'm halfway across Michigan, and I'm listening to this one interview, and I'm thinking, man, this is annoying. Oh my God, I can barely listen to this anymore. And then suddenly it dawned on me, it was me that was annoying. That's a problem. Anyways, if you ever decide you want to listen to the podcast and you want twice as much, if you go to click on our Patreon link on our website, for just 365 payments of 16 cents a day, you can get twice as much podcasting. You get it on Monday and Tuesday. This will be on the free channel because it's manufacturing.
We appreciate that.
Yeah, I know you do. Would you like to sponsor the podcast?
We can talk about that. Yep.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to do that. I keep waffling between having sponsors and not having sponsors, and I'm thinking, I don't think having sponsors fits my personality. Hey, if you want to sponsor us, get one of your people to sign up ScaleTrains to the Patreon channel, and pony up $5 a month. At least do that.
There you go. That's a good idea.
Yeah. I think that's it, isn't it, Bruce?
Did we ever give out the URL for Midwest Model Railroad?
I don't think so. MidwestModelRR.com. Now we're done.
But what happens when you go there?
You get to see all the AML merchandise. Just scroll across.
That's right. You scroll across the top to the... did you?
I said that part. Were you sleeping?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
No, seems so long ago. We were talking about hot dogs and condiments and things like that.
Does this sound like anything like a podcast, Shane?
Sounds like just some folks having a good time.
Yeah, there you go.
There we go.
Does anybody at ScaleTrains listen to the podcast?
I think so, yeah.
Well,
I mean, I've had folks mention things that they've heard on the podcast.
Okay, well, there you go. That's it. We're done. Are you ready, Shane?
I'm ready.
So remember, a Modeler's Life podcast is considered marginally adequate by 6 out of 10
Indy 500 ticket holders.
Four car crushing action Saturday at the Spectrum. Burning motor coaches battle it out in the mud bog with special guest stars Heather Locklear and Knight Rider Car Kit.
It's another Lincoln Homer.
Nice. Well done.
Excellent.
Nice delivery.
Yeah.
Delivery's important. Delivery's important.
Got to have passion.
You got to have passion. There you go.
That's right.
You got to have passion.